The following is not meant to serve as medical advice. It is merely the story of my own journey and learning process. All the Unexpected, Season 3, Episode 3. A Dad Doula? All right, well, we have a very special episode of All the Unexpected today, and I am joined by Mr. Patrick Hutchins, and he is the founder of Dou-Bro'z, and they are a doula service with dads, for dads, and I think that's such an exciting concept, and I'm going to not spill the beans too much because I'll let him tell more about himself, but I'm very excited to have this episode, so I want to say welcome, Patrick, and maybe just introduce yourself to us.
I just want to thank you for having me on. This is definitely an honor. Once again, my name is Patrick Hutchins. I'm the creator and founder of Dou-Bro'z. What we are is that we're a trained postpartum doula service. We're also trained childbirth educators. We're also trained and certified in 24/7 dad. I've had 45 hours of lactation training, and we're certified in a couple other disciplines and stuff. The purpose of us taking all of this training was to learn it, and then take all of what we learned and then create it just for fathers. So have it set up to where the dads will then be aware of what they need to do to help the mothers during the pregnancy to birth cycle. With Dou-Bro'z, we also teach the men about the hormonal changes that we experience during that time period as well. So we have courses known as Him, Her, Baby, where we teach the man once again about their hormonal changes. We talk about what we consider the big three, and that's vasopressin, oxytocin, and testosterone. So we educate the men on that, what those hormones do and how they affect them. We also then we teach them about the awareness of mom. So what your body's going through during the pregnancy, pre and postnatal. Teach him to be prepared as far as taking over when it comes to being in the delivery room, understanding that, you guys have a job to do. So, this is our time to kind of step up, and kind of take control, but have like a birthing plan to where both parents get together, have a birthing plan and work that out. But the point of it all is to relieve as much stress off of her as possible, understanding that the stress goes directly from her to the baby. And then also teaching him to, kind of understand the contours of her face and everything else. Looking out for signs such as, that may be related to gestational diabetes and preeclampsia and stuff. So teaching him to look out for those warning signs, because maybe she may not be aware of them, because some of them do with swelling and they may just think that it's natural. But if we can teach him to kind of, because we say, if I'm with you, then who better knows the contour of your face and everything else, right? So we teach the men that. Lastly, we prepare them for their baby. And the way that we do that is through a series of tactics and stuff that we teach them to. One of the things that we address a lot that's kind of like not spoken about in society, but that happens, is shaken baby syndrome. And so we want to attack that head on, understanding that the underlying cause of it is frustration. And so it's frustration because a father can't soothe his crying baby. And so he may get frustrated and then take it out on the baby, understanding that just a minor shake from you causes damage to that little baby, right? So what we do is that we teach him to, one, understanding his baby's cries, right? So if you can understand and identify your baby's cries, that helps you out. The way that we bring it to the fathers, especially to the new fathers, the majority of them have, let's say they have a dog. So if you have a dog, then we ask them, when your dog barks, do you run after it every time? Or do you understand your dog's bark? You can understand when it's a protective bark or when they're just playing around. You get that. It's the same tools that you utilize for that you utilize to understand your baby's cries, right? Mm-hmm. But then what we do is that we also teach them that understanding how to swaddle, understanding that swaddling the baby would be the closest thing to mimic the mother's womb. So it can soothe a crying baby as well. But then we teach them how to swaddle, the techniques of how to doing that as well. So we give them avenues to utilize prior to you getting frustrated to the point where you have to shake the baby. But then understanding that if it gets to that point, you know how to call for help, and you know how to then identify that you are the one that's then being stressed out about the whole situation, understanding how to take a step back before you react. And then we also teach them about the safe sleep techniques and stuff. So
Okay,
that's
yeah.
just us in a nutshell.
That's yeah. So we're definitely going to unpack some of that as we continue to chat because that was a really great overview. But a couple of steps back. So I'm curious how you were led to this work, right? So what led you as yourself to say, hey, this is a gap that's not being served, and this is why I need to do this. So I'm curious as to kind of your story. How does that play into this?
Well, I was a single dad in a state that I was new to. So I transferred out here to Arizona. Didn't know anyone. Found myself being a single dad. Um, just kind of struggling to get by. But then, seeing that if I could step out, with these systems that they have, or these, and see if I could get some help. And I got rejected at every turn. And so when I got older, I was able to fight the system. And it was just largely due with child support. So I was able to fight the system, but I knew that the system was kind of set up not for dads, and they didn't have anything to help any fathers. So not wanting any fathers to be in my situation, this kind of put me on the path. What changed everything for me was that I went to a community action network meeting in South Phoenix here, and ran into an incredible individual named Anna Rodney, who was a doula. And we were talking about the infantile death rate and the mortality rate here amongst Black women and Hispanic women. And so we were talking about how we could, fix that. And so one of the ways they were talking about the importance of a doula and the role that the doula would play in that. And so while we were sitting there, I thought about everything that I kind of went through with my kid's mom. I was there, umbilical cord, did everything just off of instinct, not really knowing that it had a name to it or anything like that. Just doing it because I thought this is what we're supposed to do, you know. And so just knowing that I was there to witness all of this stuff and how it made me feel, and the bond that I have with my kids, despite me and the mom not being together, the bond that I still had and forged with my kids through all of everything that I had to go through, the systems and all of this stuff. So she was talking about the benefits of that, but I always thought that it took two to make this thing work. So you have to include the father in there somehow. So I just simply asked, what is it that, that we as fathers, what can we do? What can the male do in this role besides the traditional, well, it used to be back in the day. So where we handed out the cigars and stuff, it's a boy, it's a girl. What can we do besides the traditional that, or now pop blue or pink colors? What is it that we can do? And so when she was talking about doulas, we were kind of joking around. And so we said, I said, well, why can't we be doulos? And so then we was like, maybe not doulos.
Yeah, right.
So so we'll retract that. And so they kind of put it out there to me, and saying, well, we kind of get that we don't know if you were serious, because you were joking when you said it, but were you serious, or do you think you could put something together for fathers? And I said yes.
I love that.
And
Yeah, that's so
yeah,
organic
and
the way it came. Yeah.
because it was a void there, because I knew that if the importance of a doula to a mother, then what if we can do that for the father? What if we can have that individual there and guide the father through all of this, right? And be there for him, on similar circumstances, but from that male perspective. and then understanding that it's still nurturing from both aspects. But now you have both parents who are totally dialed in, right? But they also know each other's bodies and what they're going through. So, because within all of this, through the research, I found out that the hormones that I talk about are the ones that we also share, because when you're going through, you have your testosterone levels, your vasopressin levels, and your oxytocin levels. And we go through the same ones. They affect us in different ways, but it's still the same three.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you do the research, you find out how they're all tied into one another
Yeah.
and how they do affect us. And so just thinking that, what can we do as fathers? So if we can bring this element into it, and it's sort of like, the reason I said that too is that I love my dad, and my dad was everything to us in the community and everything. He's the reason as to why I give and I do what I do. Um, but he didn't tell me anything about having kids.
Yeah.
So he did not share any secrets with me on that. He told, and I tell everybody, listen, he told me, if you're old enough to have them, you're old enough to take care of them.
Well, so then
And
that's
that's
an
it.
interesting point, though. So you're kind of redefining this male role, though, right? Because we're transitioning from this, okay, you're just handing out cigars and then that's a woman's place and you're not even in the room. So how have you found that there's some resistance or there's some pushback? How do you sort of break that old school mentality about it? You know?
Well, just letting them know that that's what it was. It was an old school mentality. We can't fault our fathers for not knowing,
Mm-hmm.
because their fathers didn't know, right? Because we got separated from it somehow. We knew back then, because once again, the old adage is, what it takes a village, right? And so when we look at it, and even if we dissect the word doula and we go back to the origin of the word, it's Greek. It's actually past Greek, but as far as they say, it's Greek. But the meaning of it, the root word is slave or servant, and it's usually female. So we knew that this has always been what we did, and the fathers were involved because we had our rituals to prepare us for fatherhood as well. But we got so removed from them that we got lost in the weeds. So it was just a matter of me saying that all we have to do, at I'm famous for saying with my partners that we're not going to reinvent the wheel. So we're not doing that. We're just showing you what we used to do, and then bringing that old school back. So when I tell them and they ask, how do you break this down, and tell them it's because it's inherent in us. And once you understand what those hormones do, then all of a sudden that light comes on. And that's the beauty. What I love about it is that when I explain it to people, then you can see that light come on, and then they get it. And it doesn't matter how old they are. I've spoken to some youngsters um, that were aging out of foster care, and they were having kids for the first time. And so, but when I explained to them what was going on, and now that was resistance, because they didn't want to hear anything from anyone else. But once you start explaining this to them and it got interesting, then all of a sudden they had their aha moments. And then they start understanding what they were going through, and now they get it. So now they understand that my body is preparing me to do something. But now I get what it is. And I know that it's preparing me for fatherhood. It's showing me what I need to do. It's softening me. And so just kind of, any resistance is just the explanation, excuse me, of it. Just kind of explaining it to them instead of brushing them off.
Yeah, I love
I'll
that.
give you an explanation and explain it. So then this way you get it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great moment because I love the idea of reclaiming the past, right? So it's not, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're saying we lost something and we're taking it back. And I think there's such empowerment in that. And I think when you give people information in the form of empowerment, it tends to hit differently, right? In that sense.
Yeah.
And so interesting, I kind of want to circle back to something else you were saying. You were talking about knowing the partner and recognizing the signs. I was wondering if you want to talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's a great peace, because it's almost like if someone else knows as best the things that they see as an observer versus us observing ourselves could be a very important piece. So I want to talk a little bit about how you form that educational piece, what kinds of things you would tell a dad in terms of how to be more in tune with her and what's going on, and that whole process.
A lot of it was through my experience, being there for my kids and being there for the mom. The one thing that I had always heard is when we talk about what is known as Kovade syndrome, right? And that's just basically empathy pains, and going through that. Um, but I always felt that if I'm when I was with my ex, so I had empathy and sympathy for her before she got pregnant because I loved her. And so that's why I always said that you have that before, but how you get into understanding that is that because I'm with her. Before the baby, it was just her and I. And so during that time period, I'm studying her. And so I'm studying the contours of her face because I'm with her every day. Because this is my love. This is the person that I'm with, right? And so now when she got pregnant, I could tell because I could say, it's. I was talking to the young guys and we were talking about the glow, but I'm telling her face is getting a little puffy here and stuff, and she's putting on the makeup and she's still going about it. No, I'm not really seeing it, but and just so through the first pregnancy, just observing her when she had our daughter, then that was I was able to then learn from the first one as well that I need to pay attention to this because then I know that she got sick this way. So I know that now that I know she's pregnant again, I can prepare. I know that she was high risk because of being African American of preeclampsia and stuff. I know that I have to make sure that she doesn't stress herself out and work too hard. So I have to take care of all of it. So through learning, through my experience, I just gathered all of it. And then when I started doing the research on it to learn it, then it all tied back into what I'd already known and what I was doing already, just had to put a name to it. And so it came from experience. And that's why I tell the guys once again, if that's the person that you're with and you're going to have this baby with this new life with, you're going to be there with her the majority of the time. You're going to and study her as she studies you. Study her, you know, and this is why we also this leads into us talking about keeping those records, so we can talk about starting your family and your roots and everything else. So now I know what your medical conditions are. I know because I'm there with you from the beginning. I can see all the warning signs. So it comes from my experience, but then with the research, putting it together, and then just seeing that with some of the guys that I talked to, and I helped out. But the majority of the moms that I talked to, that was one of the things that I found out is that just having that support system there and having that individual kind of, I don't really want to say a pre-warning, but having that person there observing as well, so you can just go about the business of having a baby.
Yeah, no, it's a big piece of it, and I think one of the things that both parties can be rather overwhelmed, right? And so what would sort of if someone's really kind of starting at 101 with this whole thing, like what would you give this father to be, a kind of step one? So if they're saying, well, I have no idea what I'm doing, right, and I have no idea where I'm going, and this is all way too much information, and someone's so overwhelmed by it all, where do you even start?
We start with self, because we have to get him to tie into this. One of the things that we, through research, it triggers your fight or flight response. And so that's what we're trying to prevent. So the very same way that you phrased it is what we get. And that's that fight or flight response because it is overwhelming. So what we do is that we have him take a step back. This is where we talk about meditation. And then we talk about rehabilitation within the meditation, so then you can understand what's going on. So what we would teach him to do is to take some me time, um, get into what's coming, what you're about to get yourself into, what you're about to, the development. This is why we teach them about self awareness of self, knowledge of self, because then you're going to get these feelings. And I don't want you to run from these feelings. I need you to accept these feelings because they're good. They're good, right? All of it is preparing you to be what you think you're not ready for. But this is what gets you ready. So we take the new fathers, especially the younger ones, and then we sit them down. And then through our experience of the multiple dads that we have here to talk to him, we're your coaches. We're your support system. We're here to help you out. There's no question that you can't ask us. There's no situation that hasn't happened to where one of us or someone that we know has not experienced. And it's okay. It's okay for you to be scared because this is overwhelming. But just as her body is designed to deliver birth, yours is designed to give it. See? And then you have to understand that along with that, you get prepared just as she's being prepared. The only difference is no one told you that you're being prepared. So you don't know what those feelings are. So embrace them. So we just let them know, embrace them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so I guess so you said that there are multiple dads that are coaches. So how does the setup look? So if someone is going to expect a child, how often would you see them? When would you see them? Is it in groups or are you doing one-on-one coaching? What does that actually look like, the service of doula for dad, right?
Okay, good question. And thank you for that. The service is set up where we have 5 visits. So we can have it either way you're comfortable. We can have 3 in the front, 2 on the back end, or 2 on the front, 3 on the back end. However he's comfortable. Our motto here is that we meet the dad where he's at, right? So we want him to be in a relaxed state of consciousness when we give him this information because we understand that that's the best way that he can retain it. So we like to say that, hey, if you play ball, I'll meet you on the basketball court. But just understand that prior to us playing basketball, we're going to have this conversation. So we're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk about it. So we do one-on-ones, we do group sessions because we also want to bring and introduce him to other fathers so he can know that he's not the only one going through it. And then we have different fathers. So we have individuals who are just stepdads who are foster dads. We have special needs dads. We have dads who have blended families. We have granddads who are taking on families now. So, and then we have the new fathers from the young ones to, believe it or not, we helped a new dad who was 55 years old.
I believe it.
And yeah, so from all of it, and we bring them in because we want to try to pair you with someone that you can relate to. Because then we understand that if I can reach you, then I can teach you, you know? And so we have to reach that individual. And if you can identify with that Dou-Bro'z, then it makes it easier. So we like to meet them wherever they're at. We have a multitude of ways of doing it. We do it virtually. We like to do one-on-one sessions. It all depends on the father and what his needs are. Some of them feel comfortable in a group setting. Some of them feel comfortable with you just going one-on-one because then they have certain things that they kind of want to, divulge just to you, and because they are comfortable with you, you know. So we like the initial consultation, the way we set it up, though, is that we have both parents there because we want to be transparent to the mom. So we want her to know everything that's going on, what he's going to be learning. So then this way she can hold him accountable for everything that he's bringing back to the table.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And it's also not, some secret you're going playing basketball. What are you really doing kind of scenario, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
accountability on all fronts. No, I think that's I mean, you can imagine, right? Um, I think that's a great model, and it's interesting because I was talking with a doula in another episode we were doing, and we're talking about how someone should go about choosing a doula. So it's interesting the idea that same principle, right? Do you share the values with the person? Do you find a match? And it's a very, I think, important aspect of it. And so, but I'm curious, what do you a lot of times, especially after the baby is born, you get the dad that's like, well, I can't breastfeed. I can't do this. I can't do that. And there's this sense of saying, well, she's doing everything and she can do everything. I'm useless. What can I actually do? And what would be some concrete things you're going to tell that dad that no, here's what you need to do. Here's what you can do. And here's where you can contribute. Because I think sometimes you hear that argument very often.
Yeah, and you do hear it a lot of times. And that's where I let them know this is our time to shine, really. Because now for lack of a better phrase, the package is here. And so now it's our time to shine. But then understanding that how do you shine, right? You shine by giving mom a break. You shine by understanding and advocating for mom when she's out there in public breastfeeding, advocating for other moms when they're breastfeeding because you understand the importance of it. We show them how to then alleviate, once again, the biggest issue that we have is the stress and the overwhelmness of mom having this baby. So, cook. If you don't know how, we'll teach you. We'll show you. That's what the Dou-Bro'z is there for. Clean. You can always do that. As far as mom is concerned, you want to take care of her. Make sure that she gets her self care. Run a bath for her. Make sure that you keep the romance, if you will, alive by setting up times for you guys to have adult time together and have dates. Let her know that she's still important, like, and let her know that her job is important. But then you fill in so when she needs to sleep, you're there because you've been taught how to once again take care of the baby. So our job is important because we're your relief. We're the hey, put me in, coach. We're those, that's what we want. And so this is literally our time to shine. So we tell the fathers that you are there to make sure that if she's breastfeeding, she understands and you understand how to breastfeed. You understand that when she complains about maybe that her nipples are raw or sore, you understand what all of this means and the pain that she's going through. So then this means if she has to pump, then you can then understand how to hold the baby in that position to where it'll be used to still thinking that it's breastfeeding from the mom. So it doesn't have that separation and have to, keep from the routine. We teach them to understand the feeding routines and what mom has to go through, whether breastfeeding or not. But then understand that so he can get involved in it. You take a shift, but then you can understand how not to be overwhelmed and be tired so you're ready to take on and you have that energy. So you are here to literally be everything that she can't be right now and everything that she needs. You're there for that. But the way you do it is through knowledge, and we teach you the tools how to do it.
And it's interesting. So you were talking about surrounding their knowledge with regards to breastfeeding. So have you consulted with lacticians, or are you having sort of any kind of like, how does that training look like for dads? Like,
I actually had 45 hours of lactation, so
okay, so
training.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah, with the lactation organization, they're based out of California, but they're in a couple of different states. The young ladies, so I was honored to have the opportunity to go through that training. So then this way, what I can do, and my whole purpose for doing this is to take the training, but then reprocess it through the lens of the father and showing that I'll go through this stuff and then bring it to you so we can take out the bits and pieces that we need for us to understand the bigger picture, right? For us to understand that how uncomfortable that the mom may feel because there may be somebody who thinks that this is not right or this is, gross or whatever they may be thinking. And then understanding the importance of just you as an advocate and then support. Because then if a mom is out there and she may be alone breastfeeding, but she sees you with your wife or your significant other breastfeeding and you're there supporting her throughout the entire time, it makes her feel better as well.
Mm.
you know so I took all of that training to understand it and then reprocess it from a male perspective, from the father perspective, and then this way I can then teach it to the dads.
That's great. So that's an interesting thing. So you've done the 45 hours of lactation training. Have you done any other certificate trainings? What are some of the other things that you've tried to do or you have as a goal to try and do in the future?
Well, I'm certified as a mandated supporter. That's sort of like where they have mandated reporters. Any organization that you work with, if it's abuse or anything of that nature. So they're redoing this from a different lens, and now they want the mandated reporters to also see it from support perspective as well. So before you call and report, see what you can do to support them. And so I just got certified in that. I'm also certified. I'm a certified trainer in the bringing the protective factors framework to life in your work, and then I'm also getting certified in the triple P level 2. So and just beyond that, um, the other sort of like training that I'm kind of like in is pertains to from a mental health standpoint, like parents in the NICU with kids in the NICU units and stuff, and understanding the fathers and bringing that. So I'm taking that training to understand it fully, but then once again take it and then flip it. So then this way I can get the fathers to get, because they need the fathers to be more involved in that as well. But we have to understand maybe it's trauma that's preventing them from doing it. And then how do we process that and then get them involved? So that training I'm currently going through now.
That's a huge piece, and that's amazing to hear. So we are NICU parents. We had a daughter born at 26 weeks who spent 109 days in the NICU. So
Wow.
yeah, and we've talked about it quite a few times, and it's something that supporting the NICU dad and stuff is very close to our heart over here at All the Unexpected, and so that's wonderful to hear, and it's all the more important with the added layer of medical racism that comes in, the added layer of higher rates of CPS reporting, all the sort of things that happen to Black families, in that circumstance. And so that is an amazing goal and and wonderful to hear, because those dads really need to have the advocacy for themselves and for the family. And we talk a lot about, especially very often it's the case of the mother being incapacitated for the first couple of days or the first time. And so being able to say that not only at this time are you stepping in what she can't do, but a lot of the times it's 100% of what you're doing. So that's an amazing goal. And so wonderful to hear. So my question, I guess it's a natural next question, is do you see this as something that, because I know you're based in the Phoenix area, but could you imagine it expanding? Could you imagine trying to, let other people know that this is a training, and how would you envision being able to do this, in more communities and in more places?
Yes, the goal is to actually try and get this into as many counties, cities, states as possible, because once again, we're talking an epidemic in every state that I've gone to, that I've spoken with. We have a problem with within the Black and brown communities as far as the infantile death rate and the mortality rate of the mothers and stuff. And they all have issues with, because it's all the same system, and the system never wanted to involve the father, and so everyone's trying to scramble to figure out how to get them involved. And so this is why, once again, we want this to go to as many states as possible. Our acronym is MEN, right? MEN. And what that stands for is masculine, evolved, nurturing. Because that's what we're talking about here. Is that we're not talking about what my dad taught me as far as being a man, right? We're not talking about throwing that out. No, what we're talking about is that the same thing that I started with when I told you that my dad told me, hey, if you're old enough to have them, you're old enough to take care of them. That has to evolve. So I took what he gave me and evolved it into what I have to do for my kids and my daughters, my sons. And then how can then I can be this nurturer that they need, but then still be this masculine man figure, or however you want to define it, as their father. So I still want to keep that because of the discipline aspect of it, and to understand the respect aspect of it, right? That's what I had with my dad. But then I also want to understand that that has to evolve into understanding the fullness of all of this, right? And how this is about all of the hormonal aspect of it is the evolution, because now we can talk about openly about what we're going through, and the men won't recoil and they won't run away from it because now they understand it. And then it goes into the nurturing part. We're natural nurturers. It's just, how do you see that? How do you visualize yourself as a natural nurturer? Your father was a nurturer, but he did it in his way, which is what we were talking about. He said that if you put a roof over your head, food in your belly, clothes on your back, he loved you. And he did. There was no question. You really didn't have to question it. You may have wanted to hear it, and for him to show it affectionately more, but you didn't question it because every day you woke up with that roof over your head, and you ate every day, and you had them clothes on. You knew, and you saw him leave off to go to work. You knew what was going on with that. So what we're saying is that evolves to where with my son and my daughters, I would tell them, that I love them. We're going to show them that we love them. We're going to be the best version of ourselves, regardless whether or not we're with the mom. So, which means there's not going to be any bickering, which means we'll understand it from her perspective, which means no matter it out, which means that our households need to be similar. I'm not trying to run your house and you're not running mine, but for the sake of the children, if we're splitting custody with them, then when they go back, it should be at least on par. It should be on par with it. And whichever way, that's where that real support comes in. You don't need the system to get in and tell you to pay your support. But if you know, then that's where the support comes in, because it's not about that. I know with my kids, if I bought groceries and it was their time, their month to spend with their mom, if I'm going to be here by myself for an entire month, I don't need all of these groceries. So your mom doesn't have to do any shopping. It's going with you, so it just goes with you. And that's just natural. Or at least that's what I think. But that's what leads me to do what I'm doing here, is because I just think that, once again, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just basically common sense.
And also, I like the piece about evolution, right? I think that's the point, right? Because, the opposite of that is stagnancy, right? And so if we continue to stay stagnant, then nothing changes, right? And a lot of the issues that we see these days, people are wringing their hands. Why is infant mortality so high? Why is maternal mortality so high? Why, is there such inequity in, frankly, the world's richest country, right? Let's really talk about what we're seeing. And so, so much of that has to do with stagnancy and a lack of evolving. But if you're saying, like, let's reimagine, and it doesn't mean throwing the baby out with the bathwater either, right? We're not saying that we didn't learn anything from our parents, right? But at the same time, it's one of those things, and it was funny because I was thinking about it earlier today, and it was a phrase I once, when they said, instead of giving your children everything you didn't have, teach them everything you didn't know. right? And it's
Exactly. That
just,
part.
it's yeah, and but in some ways it's revolutionary, right? Because for a lot of people they're saying, well, I never had this and that, so buying them this and taking them here and doing that. And I said, but at the same time, if we're not evolving and teaching something new and saying perhaps we need to reimagine the way that we do this, right, then we're missing a piece of that. And I think that's such a great basis that you kind of said earlier, this idea of starting with self-awareness and starting with self-reflection, right? And that's, a huge piece of it, because a lot of people have, healing to do, right? A lot of people, and then that's one of the things that they say, try and do all that healing before you become a parent, right? Like, because, we'd rather have our kids not have to heal from their childhoods, right? So it's, yeah, and it's wonderful. Yeah. So I guess I've got your website here on the screen for people, but how can they get in touch? And so let's say someone is not in the metro area that you are, can they still contact you, and what kind of things can you do for people in different places?
They can, well, they can reach us through email, and that's just going to be first and last name. So Patrick, then Hutchins, Hutchins at Dou-Bro'z, BRRDOU hyphen BROZ.com. Or they can reach us by phone, and then the phone also we have it set up to where you can text us if you need to do that, and that would be 480-672-4972. We do virtual. So our website is going to be under construction, and we're setting it up to where you can go to the website and then you can schedule classes. And so the way that we set it up for the virtual is that we have a packet that, and we'll send everything to you electronically, or if you want, we can print it out and send it to you via mail. But we have all the things set up to where we can do it that way. If you're talking about an actual Dou-Bro, we're not set up to where we can visit every state. But if you want to schedule one to where we can do a consultation with you, and then you can always meet us on the virtual. So if you're comfortable with that, then we can meet there and we can have these conversations. But just know that you have someone that you can speak with. And then we're actually working on a podcast that we're going to be doing, and it's going to be called Let's Talk About It. And within there, we're going to be talking about a lot of the issues that the fathers and the males that are facing that we don't talk about. So we're going to talk about stress and how to deal with it. We're going to talk about cancer and how not to run from it. And to, once again, we want to promote health. We hear a lot of people talk about generational wealth. What we talk about here is generational health, because in order for you to distribute that wealth, you have to be around. So we need you to be healthy, so then this way you can be around for the generations, because the wealth that we talk about doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. We're talking about as far as the knowledge, passing the knowledge down from generation to generation, like once again, like we used to. So those are the ways to get in contact with us. We're here to help out. We do consultations. We do public speaking, just anything that you need in regards to fatherhood. We're here to help out, because we're just trying to, we're just happy to actually be bringing some awareness to this subject.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you. So I wanted to thank you for being with us today and taking the time. I look forward to hearing, feedback from our listeners, and we'll definitely have all of your info and contact stuff on the site. So thank you so much again for being with us today.
It has been a pleasure, and it's been my pleasure. I want to thank you guys for having me, and thank you for the work that you guys do, because I love what you guys do there. So, and thank you for helping me spread the word.
Of course. Thank you all. Have a wonderful week in love and light. As always, you can find us on our website at alltheunexpected, one word, alltheunexpected.com. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even Pinterest these days at All the Unexpected. I always look forward to hearing feedback, and thank you all.